Good morning and welcome back into another day here at Churchill Downs. This is the Kentucky Derby morning work show presented by Twin Spires. The track is fast. The weather is fair. It's 54 degrees, quickly warming up. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful week to start the meet on Saturday. Let's take a look at the headlines. Top Kentucky Derby contender Fierceness enjoys his first day spinning around the track yesterday here at Churchill Downs. Yesterday's Work Tab Grand Mo the First worked 6 furlongs at Gulfstream Park. Frankie Dettori Tab 2 Pilot Society man in the Kentucky Derby, only going to be his second ride in the great race. Forever Young is scheduled to breeze 6 furlongs this morning. He's going to be breezing in company. He is already on track, so we'll catch up with him in just a little while. Caitlin Free and Travis Stone going to be taking you along for this morning's action. And Travis, great to be joined by you, and happy to be sharing a set with you before we get ready to start this meet in a couple of days.
Happy to be here. It's a beautiful day, beautiful morning, Kentucky Derby week. Knock on wood, weather looks good, and yeah, we're in it.
It does look good. Heard a couple of people saying that there could be rain, but that is hearsay. Looks like it's going to be warm, and you call just about 1,000 races a year. What goes into calling a race like the Kentucky Derby, and what makes it so unique?
I'll spend 15, 20 minutes preparing for any other race throughout the year. The Derby and the Oaks, but mostly the Derby is 15 to 20 hours a week for 3 or 4 weeks leading in. My goal is to just know these horses like the back of my hand, whether it be a bridle color, a silk color, or a running style, or a particular quirk they may have, just to have it all in the brain and hope that it all comes out, or what needs to come out in those 2 minutes they're running around there. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun.
All right, well, let's go ahead and take a look at the leaderboard and the field as it stands here. Fierceness and Sierra Leone on top, the obvious 2 Stronghold arriving here yesterday. We'll look at that in just a while, but just a touch is a little bit of an interest to you.
Thought the pace in the Bluegrass was sharp. It was the perfect prep for him, a horse with plenty of upside, going in the right direction. I think he's live.
Let's take a look at the second page here, and not much has really changed other than Grand Mo the First getting into the field.
Yeah, I mean, there's some pace on that second page. I like Encino as a racehorse. Hopefully we see him in the Derby. Anna Marie, a live long shot, feels like a wise guy horse right now.
Also eligibles, we have 3 of them at the moment. Epic Ride, Uncle Heavy, and Seize the Gray nearly in the field. Seize the Gray, a new name on this list, could be the coach's second starter.
I'm sure Wayne would love to have another starter. I think Epic Ride's a live horse in the Kentucky Derby. I think he's a good horse in general. I hope to see him get in.
Let's take a look back yesterday at the arrival of Stronghold, the Santa Anita Derby winner, stepping off the van here. Almost all contenders are here on the grounds for the Kentucky Derby, save a couple. They have to be here by Saturday afternoon, but Travis Stronghold getting in town.
He's a gritty, gutsy horse. He had to work hard to win most recently. He was nice in the Sunland Derby. The only problem with him is the speed figures don't quite stack up to some of the top contenders in here.
I'm with you on that. He's the type of horse that I don't think can maybe jump up and win the race, but I think he's a horse that, as gritty as he is, can kind of fill out some of those bottom spots, whether you're talking about a trifecta, an exacta, or a super high 5. But let's take a look here at Fierceness galloping on the track yesterday. Going to be your likely favorite here in the Kentucky Derby. Looking well within himself, Travis.
Last year's 2-year-old champion, when he's on his game, he's as good as anybody, and he's not just as good, he's better than. But the problem is, when is he on his game? He's got a couple of races on form where he just threw in absolute clunkers. And it feels like those happen when things don't go his way or things are suboptimal. It's a big ask for everything to go your way in a race like the Kentucky Derby. So while he's way the horse to beat, I get it. There's a lot of reservation.
The real Fierceness is going to need to stand up here on the first Saturday in May, and 10 days out until the Derby, I believe it is, but Catching Freedom. We're going to take a look at him in just a moment when we wrap up here with Fierceness. There is Catching Freedom, and this is another horse that has really piqued your interest.
Yeah, I thought him losing a Derby. I mean, obviously he dropped way to the back of the pack, and he is a little bit pace dependent. But if you watch his replay on the far turn, he did feel a little bit push button. Like when Flavian needed him to go, he was ready to go. That is a big asset in a race like the Derby, where you have to make some moves to keep your position to avoid some traffic. I think he's a major player. You will appreciate the long stretch at Churchill Downs, much like the long stretch at the fairgrounds. And they went a mile and 3/16 there, so you know that the extra 16th of a mile is probably not a concern. I think he's a major player as well.
I would agree with that, and I wasn't so sure yesterday, but the more I thought about it and the more I saw him, I think he's going to get the pace he wants. And I really think that it was a little bit of an outlier with him being so far back in his last out race. I think Flavion's going to be able to keep him a little bit closer.
That's what I mean. He's push button. You just sort of go where you need him to go. And if the pace is scorching, then he can fall a little bit farther back off the pace. If it's not, he can get more tactical.
Let's take a look at the fillies for the 150th Kentucky Oaks. Power Squeeze had a workout this morning down at Gulfstream Park. Most of these others are on the grounds here. Regulatory Risk, she's a new name on the board.
Yeah, Chad Brown's a sharp trainer, and he's also a sharp horse player. He entered this horse for a reason. I'm intrigued by it. Tarifa the one to beat, but I think just FYI, if he don't enter, both two interesting contenders as well.
Let's look at the second page here with some of the also eligibles and the other contenders. Manama Gold, a new name on the list. She needs to supplement to get in the field, but she would be the first also eligible.
Yeah, social media was melting down a couple of weeks ago, and Ways and Means was on the outside looking in, and now she's on the inside looking out, and we can all rest easy.
Let's look back yesterday at Torpedo Anna, galloping over the surface here, and you said it, a viable contender here in this race. I was a fan of her at 2. I think she took a massive step forward at 3, and I really liked her work a couple of days ago.
She was so impressive last fall here in Kentucky, both her maiden win at Keeneland and then her subsequent allowance optional claiming win here at Churchill. And she really turned a nice corner in the fantasy most recently. Her speed figures improved, which you'd expect from 2 to 3. A lot of times, though, 2-year-old fillies don't improve from 2 to 3. They sort of they mature earlier, and then they tend to flatten out as the career wanes on. But not this one. She had a nice improvement numbers-wise, and without a doubt is one of the horses to beat in the Oaks next week.
Got a couple of promotions for Kentucky Derby weekend opening night brought to you by Twin Spires. Let's look at the money back here from the first race on opening night, Saturday, April 27th, through the last race on Kentucky Derby Day, Saturday, May 4th. Twin Spires is offering insurance on your win bets on all eligible races at Churchill Downs in the form of a $10 money back offer. Head to twinspires.com or the Twin Spires app for the official rules. Select the offers page, opt in to participate in that Derby money back, and nice to have a little bit of insurance, especially with some of these bigger fields.
Wish I could have insurance on the wages I made. I'd be in a much better spot than I am now.
I'm hearing we're getting a shot now at Forever Young as horses are on the track. He's going to be set to breeze up shortly. He's coming out of the chute. He was galloping in the chute, kind of warming up and jogging a little bit earlier on when we got started. And want to report for Kevin Kirstein reporting to us that in a little bit he is going to breeze, and his workmate is going to be Cuffed Candy for the Dale Romans barn. Cuffed Candy is going to be going a half. Forever Young, I believe, is going to be going 6 furlongs. And on board Forever Young is his rider for the Kentucky Derby. That is Ryusei Sakai, and this is going to be his first mount in the Kentucky Derby.
Every Derby is interesting. There's intrigue throughout the field every single year, but these Japanese horses just add a whole nother layer to it. And we were talking off air, Dermis Hotogake last year was good. Forever Young feels better.
Yes.
He's done very little wrong. He's overcome some adversity in some of his races. He seems to have that will to win. There's the desire to get there. He was wide in Saudi and still was able to get up and get the job done. The question is, like it is with every year, is how do they stack up ability-wise? What price are you going to get? Does it make sense from a value perspective? The Japanese, and I've been saying this for a bit, they will get their first Derby. It's only a matter of time. They've won every other big race around the world. They're taking over these big races by storm. This does feel like their best chance to date. I just don't know if you get the right price. I mean, at what point do you want to swallow 6, 7, 8, 9 to 1? Because I think that's about where he'll be.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Let's take a look now at domestic product as we get ready for Forever Young to work. We'll catch up with him a little bit later, but this is the first time I've seen domestic product here on track.
So this reminds me of Practical Joke, who a few years ago entered the Derby for Chad Brown in Clarvitz Stables and drew the way outside and somehow found the rail in one of the most, new Hall of Famer, Joel Rosario, no wonder.
Yes.
Found the rail by the time they hit the first turn and was able to totally outrun not only his odds, but his distance ability.
Yes.
Remember, he came back to win the King's Bishop or the Allen Jerkins at the time.
Yes.
Domestic product reminds me of that. And I feel like you're going to find this horse tuck in and find a spot. He's going to need a fast pace. He really hasn't had fast paces. He has a huge price, but it does feel like, and this is where Chad is so good, he knows how to negotiate trips and figure out how the race flow is going to go. So don't be surprised if he tucks in and outruns his odds. That's just whether or not it's good enough to get on the board.
I think Irad Ortiz is a fantastic fit for this horse.
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, obviously Irad, many Eclipse Awards under his belt, and that sort of savvy turf rider,
Yes.
knows to save ground, and he's the right fit for sure.
Hopefully he has a chance to maybe draw a little bit more of an inside post, would make his job a little bit easier. That's interesting that you brought up Practical Joke. I can certainly agree with that. That's one of the more underrated trips I think that we've seen in recent Kentucky Derby years, is that run for Practical Joke. What year was that?
It was the year Classic Empire and Always Dreaming, I believe. It was a wet track.
2017.
Yeah.
Here is Encino for the Brad Cox barn, and this one won the Grade 3 Lexington, the last prep race on the road to the Kentucky Derby. And
you know this horse well. I mean, you saw him at Turfway.
Yes.
He was really nice in his early career races.
Yes.
He as well overcame some adversity, had a couple of wide trips here or there. The Lexington is what it was, right? I mean, it was sort of an on the lead.
It was a merry-go-round type of race.
And against the Wine Steward. This horse has talent, though. I wouldn't be surprised. You know, maybe the Derby's a little bit quick for him, but, you know, races down the road, I feel like might be more in his wheelhouse. But don't discount Encino. A bit of a sneaky player in here.
I thought he was going to be one that would improve when he got to the dirt, but here is Fierceness, the champion 2-year-old, and it's his crown to lose. He's going to be the favorite.
I'm sort of getting all the sharp horse players have these same opinions. How can you trust a horse like this? And it's almost teetering to the other side where he's going to become value, believe it or not.
Maybe, yeah.
When he runs his race, he just wins for fun, and he's just so much the best horse. I mean, he destroyed horses last time out in the Florida Derby. He did it in the Breeders' Cup. His maiden win was sensational. But then, you know, dabbled throughout those running lines were a couple of clunkers, and it does make you wonder, makes you cause for pause.
Especially in a 20-horse field where getting out of the gate is going to be, I think, the most key spot for him.
Well, I think the opposite to that is he's got Johnny Velasquez,
yes,
who obviously has done very well in the Kentucky Derby over the years and is a veteran rider. And when you watch races day in and day out, every rider will sometimes find themselves in a weird spot. You never watch a replay and say, Johnny V, what were you thinking? He's always in the right spot.
Yep.
So he'll be able to adapt if he has the horse that's willing to do it. And you also have to trust Todd Pletcher, who, I mean, he knows what he has. He has a horse that's brilliant when on his game. And I'm sure he's doing some things in the mornings to try and work on whatever quirks this horse may have. So you have to trust the team a little bit. But again, it's a gambling game. He's going to be the favorite. So if you're against him or you have reasons to be against him, I'm not going to knock it.
Where do you evaluate this horse talent-wise versus what we saw with Forte last year?
I actually like Fierceness a little bit better. I think Fierceness is a little bit more brilliant than Forte. And, you know, Forte obviously had his things going for him as well, but I like Fierceness a little bit better. He just, again, there's the question mark, right? The lingering sort of Damocles hanging over his head as to whether or not he's always going to bring his best effort forward.
Third time could be the charm for Rapoli. Stables had Uncle Mo and Forte as morning line favorites in the Kentucky Derby. Both of those scratched the morning of, so hopefully Fierceness we can...
yeah, let's not put that into the universe.
No,
yeah,
no,
let's keep that into our head.
Third time's the charm potentially there for them, but Todd Pletcher, John Velasquez, as you mentioned, know how to win Kentucky Derbies, and if this horse has the will and the way to do it, I think he's the fastest horse in this field.
Don't forget, he's also got tactical speed.
Yes.
And obviously the Derby pace often is on the sharper side of slower fast. So if he can adapt to that as well, that is just another asset that he has. Post will matter for him. And post matters for everybody.
Yeah.
But post really will matter for a horse like this, because if he doesn't get an advantageous post or in a tough spot, that does make the task that much more difficult.
Where, if you were his owner, trainer, do you think would be a good spot for him to draw in the gate?
When you have the best horse in the race, you just have to trust that you have the best horse in the race. I want to draw outside some of the other major speed players. You want to sit the Justify-like trip in the Derby where you're just off the pace on the outside. And in fact, you can look through a ton of winners over the years. That sort of trip where you're just the American Pharoah trip. You're just on the outside of the speed, and you can move when you need to move. Your hand is not forced with an inside draw. You're not forced to a 5 or 6 wide run to the first turn. Mid-pack, get out there and see if you have the best one.
I like it, and I certainly agree with you, you know, with this type of a horse to be able to do something like that with him. And we kind of talked about it a little bit off air. How do you feel about him versus Sierra Leone?
So I I think they're both the top two horses to beat, and I'm not saying anything extraordinary there. Obviously, they've got divergent running styles, where one will come from off the pace, the other will be on the pace. You just have to trust the on-the-pace horse a little bit more, the way horse races are run and the way the Derby is run with 20 horses in traffic. Sierra Leone is a very, very talented racehorse, and obviously one that is going to turn some heads, but he's got a lot has to go his way. Come from 18th, 19th, or 20th in the Derby, a lot has to go your way.
Agree with that. And Forever Young jogging here, getting ready to take off and get started for his work. This is a Dale Romans trainee, Cuffed Candy, that is going to be working here in company with Forever Young. He's kind of been palling around with some of the Dale Romans trainees. He was on track yesterday, I believe, with Floki's Flight. I've seen him on track with this horse as well. So Ryusei Sakai is going to be on board here, Forever Young. He's going to fly out of town to ride in Hong Kong this weekend, but he will be back in town early next week. He's going to be riding Forever Young in the Kentucky Derby, and he was scheduled to be on board Continuar last year. Continuar, of course, scratched, was also with the Yoshida Yahagi barn. So both starters for the first time for Ryusei Sakai and Yoshida Yahagi here in the Kentucky Derby.
Undefeated, has done very little wrong. In fact, when he has won, he's won it pretty well. He barely got up in the Saudi Derby, and maybe that would be the one, I don't want to say knock, but the one cause for pause.
Yeah.
Bookham Dano, the horse he ran down, very nice racehorse, obviously a very talented racehorse. Bookham Dano would be probably 50-1 in the Kentucky Derby, so he barely ran him down in Saudi. But he was wide that day, and he also never looked totally comfortable in that Saudi Derby. So it looked like he was grinding and having to work for it, and was a much sharper winner in the UAE Derby. I won't pretend to know what I'm looking at with Forever Young. I have not watched him train since he got going as a racehorse last fall, but what I can see on paper is an undefeated horse, and a horse with ability and talent, and probably a running style that works for the Derby.
Yes.
He's not going to drop back to last. He's not like Sierra Leone and Catching Freedom. I think he has a little bit more speed than them.
Yeah, he's a little bit more tactical.
You're right. So that puts him ahead of several main contenders in here, and first run on them, last 2.5, 3 furlongs of the Derby. Yeah, I'd take it.
Shocker that I see a lot of things that I like with this horse. But one thing you mentioned, it's only going to be a matter of time when it comes to the Japanese horses as he gets ready to pick up the Romans horse here, Cuffed Candy, going to easily get ready to go by this horse. That one is going to work a half. He is going 6 furlongs here, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing for this horse. He had a little bit of an equipment change. It wasn't a true equipment change. Yoshida Yahagi didn't have to declare it because what he's wearing on his face right now, it's kind of a mask type thing. It's what you would call a hood, but Yoshida Yahagi took out the earmuffs of the hood. So that's the equipment part of the hood. And the reason he put this on this horse was because sometimes he doesn't like kickback. Sometimes he won't take it. He didn't like the kickback in Saudi Arabia, so he put this on him in the UAE Derby, and I think it made a good bit of difference. So there's not equipment there. He's not wearing blinkers. He's not wearing earmuffs. He's just wearing the face covering.
That was interesting tactics. Usually you see in these workouts, notice how he went inside of his workmate there, which is sort of different. You usually see him sort of stay outside or whatever. So that was obviously an intention move. And then, I'm not saying anything out of turn here. I mean, he finished up fast. So that was obviously an intention there as well, is to finish up strong. A couple of interesting decisions there for Forever Young's workout today.
Definitely some unconventional training, when it comes to the Japanese. We'll get his time.
By our standards.
Yeah, by our standards, for sure.
Yeah.
Whatever they're doing is working because they're going to win this race eventually, and I think the person to do it will be this trainer, Yoshida Yahagi. He found out a way to win 2 Breeders' Cup races. He won a Saudi Cup. He's brought horses to the Arc before. So he's won races from all over the world. He's won several races in Dubai. He's winning with horses on the dirt. So I certainly think that that's interesting, and he's found a way, to kind of make this formula work, and we'll see if it can work in a race like the Kentucky Derby. And one thing I will say for the Japanese that I think is a big plus when it comes to them for the Derby, and this is not unique to Forever Young, they're used to racing in big fields, and the crowds in Japan every weekend are 200,000 plus. So they're not seeing anything they haven't seen before. Yeah,
he's faced double-digit fields in all 5 of his career starts, 11 or more horses. Obviously, there's going to be, roughly twice that many a week from Saturday. But like you said, he's had some experiences and environments that there's no environment like the Derby.
Right.
But he has had some experiences around crowds, and
I don't think you have to worry about him, being a certain type of a track horse. He seems to really carry his track with him. I think he's raced at 5 different tracks almost. He's maybe raced a couple of different times in Tokyo earlier on in his career, but Forever Young, a very legitimate contender here for Japan. We'll get his times for you as they become available for that work he had, but I thought galloped out well, finished up nice, and as you mentioned, I thought it was interesting that he did go inside the workmate, and he was able to go by that horse pretty easily when asked.
Yeah, and I don't know the workmate, and again, we don't know what the instructions were, whether or not they go or they don't go, or they just kind of gallop around there, let this horse come up your inside. So you just gotta. I think there's some questions there, but without a doubt, whatever they wanted to do, he did, right?
Yes.
I mean, he went in. It was a very curious move to dive inside of a horse like that. Horses, they don't typically like to come up the inside of horses as much as they like to come outside.
And he's been a horse that's won from outside of horses.
Yeah,
so.
That's interesting too. In fact, in my notes, I wrote that down. All of his races, he's pretty wide.
Yeah.
Like he's sort of, and obviously the kickback is a real thing for him. So there's an example of a horse. If he draws inside, you're like, wait a minute here.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, because there's obviously kickback, meaning the dirt that comes back from the horses in front of you.
Let's go ahead and, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Let's take a look at Stronghold here. This was just moments ago. He was getting off, or this is the first time we saw him here on the track, and he arrived yesterday and just kind of did a little bit of a walking around type of thing.
Yeah, just checking out the scene. Santa Anita Derby winner, the West Coast best chance in this year's Kentucky Derby. He's rattled off a couple wins in a row. He's never been worse than second. The problem is the speed figures, they need a boost. But he's a tough horse, gritty horse. So if you get in a dogfight with him, you're going to have to earn it.
I know it is the race that's down New Mexico. Its name is slipping me. It's a 50-point race. The Sunland Derby. Yeah. I think it was kind of an underrated run from him in that race.
It was his first race since December. It was an improved speed figure. He paired it up with a decent effort of the Santa Anita Derby. Just has to move forward. KK's texting us the times there on Forever Young if you want to rattle those off.
Yeah, it looks like the last quarter that he ran was 24 and 2, and last was 3:37. So the splits 14-4, 28-4, 42-3, 55-1, a minute 19 there for 6 furlongs for Forever Young. And what are you thinking about those times?
I mean, they don't get the blood boiling, but again, I don't. It's tough for me to say without knowing what he typically does. It's easy for us to sit here in the studio and make commentary on what we see on the track. But if that was what they wanted to do, then so be it. The horse is undefeated, right?
Catalytic, we're getting a look at him. This horse coming up from Florida. There he is galloping there. And this horse was the one that was second behind Fierceness in the Florida Derby. Interestingly enough, we didn't have the Florida Derby winner in the race last year, but Mage, who won the Kentucky Derby, was second.
Yeah, he's just a little bit closer than what Catalytic was to Fierceness. Catalytic has done very little wrong. He sort of got left at the gate in his race at Tampa Bay Downs, came with a big late run. He didn't let anybody get by him most recently in the Florida Derby, so I mean that's admirable. But he was double digits lengths behind Fierceness, so gets Jose Ortiz, who is obviously a very capable rider. We'll see him throughout the spring and summer here in Kentucky, so that's a benefit. Another horse he's in the race. He's got a shot. He's going to have to step forward. Big price.
He would be a horse that I would maybe be a little bit more interested in, maybe if he ran on the Preakness instead of the Derby, if that makes a little bit of sense.
He's lightly raced, sort of developing still. Whenever a horse wins their first out, you always have to take notice. So much has to go right for a horse to win their debut. That's an indicator of ability. And obviously, when you run, even if you run second, if you're just beating double digits, it's not nothing. So
no.
I don't want to totally discount him, and if he improves again, that does put him in the conversation for maybe some underneath slots. If you're an exotics player, he would be quite the surprise on top. Yeah.
Is there anybody that would shock you more than him in this field?
Teo Password would. I mean, my jaw would hit the floor. I'll give you a couple of live long shots. Society Man, I think, is live coming out of the Wood Memorial. Horse that's getting better. I think he's interesting. Anna Marie as well. Unfortunately, every sharp horse player that I know, even the squares are picking him. So I think we're going to get a much lower price on him. As Catalytic took a little bobble there. So I mean, there's a few stunners in this field. There's a few stunners every year. It's 20 horses.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you can think most years that really, when it comes to horses, always in at least the super high five, mostly the super. you're getting somebody that's 20 to 1 or higher.
Well, the way the race is run, there's so much speed on the front
Yep.
end. Everybody's jockeying for position in that quarter-mile run to the first turn. It just inevitably allows for the race to sort of flow out. And, you know, third and fourth and fifth are oftentimes to grab bag, and it's whoever's got a little bit of a late kick.
There is Just a Touch. This is a horse that I have been wanting to get some eyes on here. I haven't seen him as much in the mornings. He's been out a little bit earlier. He worked on a day I wasn't here, but this is a horse I'm a big fan of, Travis.
I put it out on X yesterday, so Keeneland obviously redid their racetrack 9 or 10 years ago, whatever
People
it was.
were not happy that you said New Keeneland. They're like, what is this?
Yeah, well, no, who's happy on social media? Anyway, the pace in the bluegrass was the fastest bluegrass we've seen since Keeneland went back to dirt. The fractions of the first 3 fractions were all the fastest of the past 10 years or so. Just a Touch was right on top of it. In today's day and age where people just obsess over getting wins and obsess over preserving percentages, a lot of times in the Derby, you just want a good prep. And that was a perfect prep for Just a Touch. A step forward, right on top of a sharp pace. And by the way, excuse me, he was only a length and a half off Sierra Leone.
Yes.
It's not like he got beat by 5.
No,
he sort of hung around to the end.
Other horses that were close to him way drifted back.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
no,
and I would say the same thing about Epic Ride, who
Yep.
was obviously beaten a little bit more on top of that pace as well. But to me, Just a Touch, that was the perfect prep. A horse that if he takes one more step forward, which is well within the grasp, he's only got 3 career starts. They obviously think a lot of him to ship him to the Gotham and get these points going. If I had to make a pick today, I'd probably pick him. Maybe I'm being a little bit too much of a wise guy, but I thought the Bluegrass is the perfect prep. I think this horse is very talented, and I think he's a major player.
Going to take a look here at our Wood Memorial winner just moments ago. That is Resilience. He worked a couple of days ago, fitted an extra work, which surprised me a little bit, but I don't think he or Just FYI got as much out of their work in company last week as they did individually the last couple of days.
He ran in the Risen Star, which proved to be one of the most key preps that we've had so far on this Derby trail. And his Wood Memorial was, I mean, it was just so easy for him. It looked like he barely had to run. So he's going in the right direction, and he's obviously talented enough to beat some of these. The question is whether or not he's talented enough to beat the top tier. He was beaten 3 lengths in that Risen Star, and the Wood Memorial, I mean, Society Man, as I've tabbed as a bit of a live long shot, is not fierceness, right? So he's going to have to take a big step forward numbers-wise, but one of the key assets for Resilience is he's got that tactical speed. He can put himself in the race, and that tactical speed has gotten sharper for him over his career, so that's a bonus as well.
There's some horses in here that do have that tactical ability. We talked about him. We talked about Forever Young. Fierceness, I think, can be a little bit tactical if need be. So kind of my opinion is it's got to be a horse like this that's going to be able to be mid-pack if they need to be, if they get shuffled a little bit, but it's still going to be able to be push button, like you said.
He's been able to come from off the pace. He came from 5th in his maiden win at Gulfstream Park back in January, so passing horses is not a concern for him. And you're right, he's a little bit more adaptable. If that pace gets really sharp, Resilience can pull back off it a bit. Yeah.
I think there's a chance that the pace does get that sharp.
Well, it's the classic Derby conversation, right? Every Derby pace is faster than what you see on a typical Thursday through Sunday here at Churchill, or any day at any racetrack around the country. But these are the top 3-year-olds. They're conditioned for this. They've been pointing for this, so they're able to withstand the rigors of those faster paces. But without a doubt, it can take its toll on anybody. That's why, as we were saying, like a lot of times those underneath positions are live for the horse with the latest kick. Or sometimes they can get up and win, like Rich Strike, depending on how the race really shakes out. Yeah.
But yeah, always somebody coming from out of the pace there, out of the clouds, to win that type of a race. And let's go ahead and take it back here on set and kind of wrap up the show here just a little bit. And what we saw from some of the horses today, Forever Young was our only worker on track. We talked about him a good bit, but other than him working, horses that kind of gallop that we had a chance to see, is there anything that really stuck out to you?
And I'm not a physicality expert when it comes to horses, but I do obviously watch a lot of races through the binoculars. And it's sort of funny, every year we say the same thing. They all look good. I mean, they're supposed to.
They're supposed to all look good.
This is the race they've been preparing for. If I really had to pick someone that caught my eye, I do like the way Fierceness is moving. I think Catching Freedom's a good-looking horse, and I think Just a Touch is as well. And congratulations, this gave you like 3 of the top 5 favorites. So go me.
Well, they're favorites for a reason, and like you said, they all look good for a race like this. These are the top 3-year-olds. I like the work that we had from Forever Young. I think it showed a lot of versatility. Him diving inside.
Hope we find out about that. Hope somebody asks the
I'm gonna
question
ask.
of what happened, what was the intention there, why did, I mean, you never really, that was interesting. I'm intrigued by it anyway. Yeah.
Let's take a look at another promo that's going to be brought to you by Twin Spires. This is going to start on Thursday for Thurby. For each race at Churchill Downs that day, make at least a $10 win wager on a single horse. Earn points if that horse runs first, second, or third. Climb the leaderboard of your share for that $2,500 prize pool. This contest is free to enter. All you have to do is head to twinspires.com or the Twin Spires app, select the offers page, and opt into the Thurby leaderboard contest. I've had a little bit of trouble saying that. Thurby is a little bit of a tongue twister, but I think that is going to wrap it up for us today on the Morning Work Show. We're going to be back tomorrow. We only have one horse scheduled to work tomorrow. That is Honor Marie, but the next couple of days following that, this is going to be a busy, busy show. Have a good day.